Let's start using MACOBOX. First of all, we can open the support. Okay, then we can select the right voltage, for example 3.3, but it's not important for now because we can change. In meanwhile, we are using MACOBOX. Then we select CS0 and CX here. Now we can decide if we want to power on the device using external power or using internal battery of 10,000 mAh. So we can click the button to turn on the device. After we insert the pin, we have the dashboard. Now we have two different modes to use MACOBOX. Directly using the touchscreen here or using network interfaces. So we can use our laptop, our PC, our iPad, or everything you want to use to connect directly to MACOBOX. So this means that MACOBOX can work under the same network, and you can select in settings the Wi-Fi and use your Wi-Fi to connect to MACOBOX. So to explain better how it works, we can use desktop so we can show you better all the functionalities. For now, it's important to know that here we have JTAG, UART, SWD, SPI socket, SPI clip, I2C socket. Before to start to analyze any kind of device, we need to select here the right voltage. So we can put off these jumpers, wait until the green light turns off, connect the device through UART, through JTAG or I2C, SPI, etc., and then reconnect the power. So 3.3. Why? Because, for example, if you want to connect SPI socket here, it's very dangerous if you connect, for example, first VCC and after the ground, because the important thing is that you need to connect all pins at the same time. So to avoid problem, you can simply remove these jumpers. Before to start, be sure you select the right mode. On, off means that you can interact with UART, I2C, SPI. Off, on means that you can interact with UART, I2C, and SPI. On means that you can interact with UART and JTAG. And off means that you can interact with UART. So let's start to use MACOBOX. In this case, we are connected to MACOBOX through the desktop, through the VLAN interface. So access to the dashboard, main dashboard. Okay, here we have user disk, user RAM, and CPU temperatures. Then we have some information about network. In this case, we are connected to MACOBOX through wireless interfaces. Then we have the activities. Here we have all the projects and scan results. If we want to create a new project, we can create the test1 project. We can select open status, pending, or closed. In this case is open. So click on save. Okay. And now select this project. Here we can read the date of creation and last update. Then the most important things is that we can associate items. So UART analysis, SPI analysis, I2C, JTAG, eMMC, and other documentation, so other documents. For example, here we have the FCC ID. If we know some FCC ID of device, we can insert, for example, some FCC ID here. We can search on the internet, or we can read this code behind the device, etc. We can click on search. Okay, and here we have all the documentation of the device. So for example, we can read some test report. So we can click on view and read all the information about the test, or internal photos. Click on view. So we can see all the information, all the photo of the device without opening it. And then we can click on save. Okay, this means that if I go in docs, I downloaded this photo and I can see all the image of the product. So this is very interesting. In this case, when the project is done, so is closed or something else, we can modify, change the status, so in pending or closed, etc. Okay, save, and then we can export. This means that we can connect the USB to MACOBOX and transfer all the information of the project. So we can extract a zip file with URT analysis, SPI analysis, I2C analysis, JTAG, etc., and all the documentation of the device. Okay, then we have the URT. URT is very interesting because here we can interact through the serial or terminal, in this case, and then we can select the baud rate or click on auto. This means that automatically select the right baud rate to interact with the device. So in this case, we can connect to the device and start the analysis. So, for example, we can connect the device to MACOBOX. We can select the right voltage and then the right baud rate. In this case is this one. Then we can click on start and we can turn on the device. As you can see, we can read all the information on the bootloader. So now we can stop the interaction, we can save the logs, or we can expand. When we click expand, we can read in clearly modes all the information on the bootloader. So in this case, we can click on stop, we can click on save and save the log like device 1. Okay, save. Now we can find saved logs, our device 1. Here we can read the information, we can extract information through USB, and we can associate the bootloader, these logs, to the project. So test 1, associate. Perfect. Now we can read the information and also we can start AI analysis. So through API, we can analyze the entire bootloader and extract some useful information like uboot, kernel, and the memory address of this section. For example, now we can search for auto booting. Auto booting in 1 second. Now we can intercept some useful information here and avoid the boot. So we can enter in the secret part of the bootloader in which we can interact with the memory. So now, for example, we can search for some useful word that we found multiple times in the bootloader before the word auto booting. So in this case, we can go here, we can click on advanced option. We can also run scripts, but not in this case, because in this case we haven't a shell. So we can use grep and send, grep wasp, send command tpl, because in this case, this command helps us to bypass the bootloader, and we can select, for example, how many times we want to send this command. So we can restart the interaction with the board, with the device. So click on start, and now we can restart the device. Good. Now, when the command grep and send finds the wasp, send the tpl command. Now seems that when we arrived here, the bootloader stopped. So now send command enter. Good. Now we can try to use help. Perfect. Now we can interact with the device. We can use memory copy. We can erase memory. We can modify memory. We can use printtemp variables. We can reset on the CPU, etc. So for example, we can use printtemp. Perfect. Now we can save the log. So device one shell, save. Perfect. Now we can add this to the project. And in analyzed, we can find all the analyzed logs with AI, and in output, we can find all the documents related to the scripts. So if we run some scripts, we found all the result in output. Perfect. This is all related to the URT. We can also use terminal, because sometimes we need to interact with the device in using terminal. So for example, we can click stop, go in terminal, click start terminal, and here we can interact in a different way with the device. So in this case, we have the interaction with the terminal. So now we can go on and select SPI. Here we have very simple way to dump the firmware through the SPI. So we can select advanced option, we can add SPI model, or we can write a name to save the firmware. So for example, firmware device 1. We can connect the SPI on the MACOBOX. Remember to remove the jumper, insert the SPI, and then select the right voltage. After this, we can click on Start SPI Dump. So in a second, we can read Reading Flash Done. We can go in binaries. Here we have firmware device 1, so we have the binary. We can associate binary to the project. Good. We can also send to a cloud scanner, because we can interact with the cloud scanner. We can perform vulnerabilities analysis and create report. Or we can transfer the file through USB. The other things is that we can run and extract the binaries. So we can click on confirm. We can wait some seconds. Perfect. Now we can go in extracted, and here we can see all the information about the extraction of the firmware. The same things is that we can associate with the project, and we can extract and transfer file through the USB for further analysis. So the other things like I2C is like the same of SPI, so we can select the EEPROM sites from this list. We can click on advanced options, so we can choose the name, and then we click on start I2C dump. In output, we can see the dump, we can extract the binaries and see the extracted information of the binaries. Also, we can associate all the information of I2C to the project. The JTAG is very interesting. Here we can select the configuration file that we can upload. We can interact like in the URT with JTAG. We can click on start, we can save the logs and click on expand to make readable all the information. We can send all the JTAG command to interact with the JTAG. And then we can also run some operation like target, halt, scan chain, image dump, etc. Also, in this case, we can found saved logs and dumps, and we can associate all to the project. In eMMC, we can select the disk, connect the disk to the MACOBOX. We can select the disk. We can click on Start eMMC Analysis. So, for example, we can mount some disk, and then, for example, this one, and then read some information on about the eMMC memory. So, for example, like here, we can find some logo, so some image, or we can, for example, mount this one and see some key master key, etc. And then we can add to project all these documents. So click on add project, select project, and done. In settings, we can choose the Wi-Fi, so we can connect to a Wi-Fi. We can add some API keys. So one API keys is for MACOBOX upgrade key. So to receive important upgrade and new functionalities. Bin Driller, that is the cloud scanner that help us to analyze firmware in dynamic mode and is very useful to find vulnerabilities. ChatGPT API key that can help us to extract some useful information from the bootloader. So this one is useful with URT analysis. In files, we can upload some URT scripts. So here in URT, in advanced adoption, we can select the scripts here. So in settings, we can upload here and modify the scripts. In JTAG configuration, we can upload the JTAG configuration to interact with the device. In JTAG, we can find the configuration file that we upload in settings here. Then we have an account in which we can change the password to access to the MacBox, and in updates we can found the updates that we release. So, for example, if we resolve some bugs, we can click on check updates, and for example, if there is new version, we can download and install updates. So that's it, and we are working for new features, new boards, and you can use MACOBOX to interact with all the IoT devices. The last things is how to power off in the right way MACOBOX. So select the power off in the right corner here, then click on confirm power off. Wait until the logo will be shown. Okay, now we can perform a long press on the button. So, okay, when this light turned off means that MACOBOX is turned off. In this case, the green LED is on because we are charging the MACOBOX. If I unplug this one, all is turned off. If I unplug another time the jack, we can see the green light and orange light. Orange means that is in charge mode. Okay, that's it.